As the nice lady said, the recording is in progress, and let's start our next community call. And let's ask each other anything regarding BrightID and have the latest updates with BrightID and what is happening. Uh, I want to take the opportunity to ask about the latest news with Aura because I think that's one of the most exciting side hustles of BrightID. I think it's gonna be big, and I think a lot of people, not like hundreds of people, but there's gonna be a group of people that are gonna focus on that and make that grow. So I wanna have I wanna know the latest news with Aura.
Yes, I share your excitement. I wish we were a little further along than we are. So we're about to engage Raid Guild for sort of a third phase of this. Should start next week, and I hope that the very beginning of that will just be to make some UI for user experience, UX improvements to make it usable for folks to start using the system. So hopefully we'll be able to open that up for for BrightID stars and people on the inside pretty soon. And the great thing about Aura is it will start leaking responsibility out from those people. So the basic way it's going to work is the Aura works on the idea of for active players of energy, and there will be forms of energy. At the beginning, there will be one form of energy. We're calling it white energy, and it will start leaking out to some of the people that we have the most faith in the BrightID network, that they are honest and accurate in their assessments, and it will be up to each of them to choose who they want to pass energy onto. So it's transitive. So maybe I get some energy on day one, and I choose to give part of it to Michael. Great, now Michael's a player. He's got some energy. He can then give it to somebody else. He can pass some on to James. Now, Michael only got a portion of my energy, and James only got a portion of his, which was a portion of mine. So like it gets smaller and smaller as it goes. But people on the edges gain that ability to have something like seed power now. And if someone, let's say James is doing a great job, he'll be able to raise his hand and say, hey guys, look at what I'm doing here. Check out how I am on the graph, meet me, get to know me. And then please send me some more energy if you think I'm doing a good job. And in that way, James can become a strong energy source and a great person to spread BrightID further. And when he meets Mary and she wants to do the same thing, she'll be able to do that as well. So excited to see that come. And when it actually is ready for people, we'll do a much more detailed launch and description of how it works, and super excited about that.
Okay, cool. Since Michael is here, I'm trying to get to Adam later on because it's always getting to Adam. What's new, Adam? But I want to ask Michael first to get to Adam later on. But Michael, do you have any updates with the app, and is there any changes happening in the app that we have?
So I can give you a short update what will be in the next version. So just today, I made a few changes. So for once, we implemented now the new API. So the next version of the client will have a much better performance. And yeah, so this is something we've been working on for a long time. And it's finally merged to the dev branch. So it will be part of the next release. And another thing is I added support for additional languages. So our translation team and volunteers, they have prepared Russian translation and traditional Chinese, and both languages will also be part of the next release. So I think these are some nice news for the client.
Thank you. And yeah, okay. So Are we imagining a new update in the interface of BrightID, or are we sticking with the current design for some time now?
That we don't have plans of a major redesign. Of course, there's always some little improvements here and there. So we have some new proposals for the main screen to make it more clear for the users, but we don't have plans for full redesign at the moment.
Cool. Yeah, I remember we had this discussion of the groups, apps, and the connections not being obvious that are like they are buttons. Yeah, that would be a nice
Yes,
improvement.
exactly. Yeah.
Cool. And yeah, and let's get back to Adam and see if he has any updates for us. Oh, you're on mute, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, so interesting integrations that I think everyone can already know about. We talked about Aura. I think the Aragon Network DAO is an interesting one because yeah, this is it has that they have the potential to use a lot of other Aragon integration pieces that we've been working on. Right now, they just started out setting up a seed group and verifying the members and checking the verifications in a very manual process. So that's kind of the first step. Next steps would be to integrate it more tightly into, or not, I guess tightly is not a good word, but as like an app or an add-on to Aragon, so that they can view verification status within Aragon. I think that'd be a good next step, and we're willing to help with them with that. That was actually part of our a proposal that we made like 3 years ago with Aragon, but that was during crypto winter and funding got cut, so it didn't make it to the finish line. But I think now is the time to do that again. So that would be cool. Obviously we launched we launched Rainbow Roles integration, but so that's still something that you can potentially collect prizes from. So I encourage you to check out Rainbow Roles. And let's see, there's some interesting posts on Mana coming to ID Chain in the forum. So check out forum.brightid.org. I think you also can see the forum announcements in Discord, but some of those forums posts are really interesting. I think some of the proposals coming through the Bright DAO right now are pretty interesting. So I think, yeah, we're going to see some cool stuff happening with more of these independent teams working on stuff in Bright DAO. So just keep your eye on that. And especially keep your eye on if you see something that in the forum that sounds like something that you might like to participate in, because working for a DAO can be really cool and rewarding and a fun new experience. So encourage you to check those out and yeah, see if you want to work for Bright DAO.
A couple more things I'll add. I know that the Discord unique bot folks are working on improvements there. So hopefully soon that will be able to sponsor users, and they're working out a way that sort of each server that did it would be able to be in charge of its own sponsoring. So excited to see that come. You know, I am surprised how many servers that bot is installed on. I don't think all of them are actively using it. The number is surprising, and I'm not sure how it's ended up in all those places. But clearly, we see that there's demand and ability to spread on Discord if you make a good bot.
Yeah, that's I think what might happen, I mean, bots have the potential to be viral on their own. So what might happen is people see the bot on a server and they're like, oh, this is cool. Like you can put BrightID on your server, and then they want to try it out on theirs. I think you're probably right. I think 90% of them are just experimenting and probably not really using it for anything, but there's a lot. I mean, there's thousands of servers with BrightID unique bot on them. And if you look at the GitHub though, it kind of adds up. They have more stars on their GitHub than we do for any of our repos. So it's popular. Developers are looking at it and wanting to use it. So
and
yeah.
I think that if it catches on, that could just be a massive channel of growth. And if lots of people are using it, then the bot can also get better. Right now BrightID bot is free, but someone else could build a premium BrightID bot that offered even more things for someone to bring into a server, and maybe someone would pay for that service, and not to BrightID, but to whoever designed that bot. The Bright DAO right now is just paid for the tip bot to come into our server, or we're in the process of doing that. And there's a whole company, and that's their business model, is making a bot that is useful enough that communities choose to pay for the service. And I would be thrilled to see someone design a business that used BrightID in its background. That's always been the goal of BrightID, is to be foundational infrastructure that anybody can use because it's awesome.
I always thought that Discord bot is the easiest form of integration with BrightID for any project. Like if they want to provide a service to their users and they don't have the time or the resources to integrate with BrightID properly through their own app or the web UI, I think inviting that unique bot to their server is like the easiest step that they can make. Like that they can provide those services in an exclusive channel on their Discord through the BrightID bot. But I wonder what you have in mind in extra features that someone can add to the BrightID bot itself, other than the bot being able to sponsor users by itself, which is a huge improvement. Now we don't have to send users to other places and come back. But what else do you have in mind?
I mean, my first reaction is I think that most popular Discord servers have loads of non-unique accounts in them. That is certainly true of our server, and you need to be able to intelligently deal with that group of people. You need to have you basically need tiered access abilities, and I could imagine the bot being able to manage all of that much better. So you don't want to discourage someone that just showed up, that's never done BrightID, from interacting with your server. So like you open some things up to them, but you protect, and then you can make it progressively harder, but in a way that maybe in the future, if the bot was really slick, it's not a big mental load to figure out how to do this. The bot kind of helps you create that tiered protection.
Yeah, I really like that idea.
Another thing is to integrate it with other features. So like the tip bot, like tip bot and BrightID could be one bot. Like that functionality of the tipping would be great if it also did the BrightID. So the BrightID bot maybe doesn't end up being its own thing. It's like part of other. If we could get BrightID bot as part of Carl bot or Me6 or whatever it's called. So it's the functionality that I want more than like that particular bot itself. And then I want on the tip side, this has nothing to do with BrightID, but desperately, I want to be able to tip by using special emojis. This is and I want to be able to do that in such a way that it doesn't like fill up the screen with a bunch of text that I've sent a tip. Like I don't want to be so obvious about it. It's not part of the discussion. I want to reward the person for their contribution, and like if I could just give them a golden BrightID symbol, that'd be great. And like that would just mean, hey, I am tipping that person 10 Bright or whatever it is. That's predetermined. And maybe that could even be on a per user basis. That like you've got you've got your list of magic things, so I like BrightID, and I like Gitcoin, and I like squiggles. And if I could have like 3 different emojis, and when I put them, that person would get tipped a certain amount that I had pre-selected went along with each of those emojis in those tokens. So I can give Bright, I can give Gitcoin, I can give Squig. I think that would be so cool, and it could work across all the it could work across all the servers, because it's me that it's looking at.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like that. Yeah, I think all those would all be really great improvements to the tip bot. Yeah, and like you said, there's a lot of bots that combine related functionality into the same bot. And so I think another related functionality that would be cool to have would be a POAP distributor. So like merge BrightID bot with a POAP bot, so that you can whitelist people based on their BrightID, based on their Discord handle and BrightID, rather than, I mean, we've talked about this before, and started to, I think someone started to implement it, although I haven't heard from them in months now, but having it so that instead, because right now the POAP bot, you have to send a password to people, and that's not really, it gives you a password, and that's not as good as a whitelist. So that'd be a cool integration to have with that bot. One other thing that I want to call out is that ClearFund is going to be moving to Arbitrum. I guess you could call it the roll-up chain for mainnet. So that's pretty cool, because we've already tested BrightID integration on Arbitrum Rinkeby. It worked fine. So they're going to be moving soon. Right now, there's either a round that's open or just closed that's still on XDAI chain, but I think the plan is for the next one to be on Arbitrum. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, those are some updates.
Yeah, what has made them move away from XDAI to Arbitrum?
Well, there's a lot of people who feel like, okay, XDAI is not really Ethereum. It feels like it's, I mean, it's its own blockchain. It's got cool things about it. Obviously, people like the low gas fees, and I think XDAI is cool because, like, if you want to distribute a token to someone who is brand new and doesn't understand gas, and XDAI chain can be pretty good. I actually personally prefer ID chain's model, but they both suffer from the same weakness, in my opinion, which is that right now, bridge validators hold way too much power. So there's a handful of people that could just collude and run off with all the funds. I mean, everything. I'm not talking about like a 51% attack where they like steal some money from an exchange or something. I'm talking about that they could take all the money from XDAI that's been locked up and just take it. So that's, to me, that's an unacceptable bottleneck. And so that, and ID chain currently suffers from the same thing. Luckily, ID chain doesn't have hardly any money on it, but XDAI chain actually does. And so that's scary. I mean, especially the people who want to donate to ClearFund, a lot of them want to do it anonymously. They're like really big on privacy. They understand how blockchains work, and they understand the security issues involved with different settings for blockchains. And so they realize that, okay, this is kind of an unacceptable model, but yeah, we'll go, they're willing to go with it for small amounts of funding. I think once they move to Arbitrum, you'll see I think it will instantly unlock much larger funding rounds. So I think that's the main reason why they're doing it.
I agree. I think that the funding rounds could be a lot bigger. Also, they just got an amazing grant from the Gitcoin DAO. So they received a very substantial allocation of GTC tokens. Aaron commented on Twitter today that that'll fund a year's worth of all the developer work. So having money to now pay a real staff. I mean, they've been sort of making it work around the edges with little bits, but this is the first time that they've ever had meaningful funding. So they're headed to an exciting new network where a lot more people are willing to maybe throw money around, and they've got a bunch of assets to pay developers to build cool stuff. So I think we're going to see rapid improvement of ClearFund, more dollars coming in, both from the grant pool and individual donors. Yeah, their growth trajectory is awesome, and I'm so happy to be a foundational part of that wonderful project.
Yep. And so I want to be clear that we really like XDAI chain and they like us. But I feel a little unsure about the plan towards greater decentralization. I feel like ID chain has a good plan, and I'm hoping that we can get some proposals up pretty soon to add better decentralization to ID chain. I've seen that there's sentiment among OneHive, which is another really big Gardens DAO on XDAI chain, that they want to move to Arbitrum. So there's some like pretty interesting projects that are trying to make that shift. It'll be interesting to see what BrightDAO does down the line, if we want to stay on XDAI chain. But for now, it's the best. I think it's the best that we can do, is to be on. It's got the best. I mean, it's got the OneHive stack. That's the main reason we're there. So I think we can revisit that choice once OneHive migrates somewhere else. But for now, we're totally, we're happy with XDAI and how they're helping us, and we, I mean, there's some proposals. If you read the forum, there's some proposals to get some matching from XDAI for a liquidity pool. So there could potentially be, like, the current plan is to try to get 2 staking pools for XDAI. So this is kind of interesting news, and I would encourage you to follow this thread on the forum. But we're trying to allow people to earn rewards staking Bright and XDAI as a liquidity pair. So that'll be pretty cool. And XDAI has mentioned that they're looking for reasons to help DAOs that are on XDAI chain, give rewards to their users in stake. So that's something to look for. So be looking out to get some XDAI stake rewards in the future, and some more Bright rewards for staking your XDAI and stake, or your Bright and stake. So yeah, there's that. I see some really interesting questions popping up in the chat. Do you want to take some of those, Paslar?
Sure. Red Reed is asking a question about verification. Says, so right now we have verification parties to verify users in the verification parties to verify users, but in the future, do you see BrightID verification being verified using a computer version to ensure every account is linked to a unique user? Because a computer version model would be able to make sure to make the uniqueness of a user more certain. Do you agree with that? Like, do you think a web UI is going to help with verifying uniqueness better?
So the thing about BrightID is it leaves the door open for any tools that anyone wants to use to make the verification process better. So it was interesting. Like, in the early days of BrightID, someone came to us and is like, "Hey, I really like the model. I like the social graph of users verifying other users, but we want to use BrightID, but we want to add a footprint. Like, we want users, when they connect to each other, to like take a footprint of the other person." And I'm thinking, like, how are you going to do that? Are they going to step on the tablet? Like,
we need a literal literal print of their foot.
Yeah.
Not,
And
not
so
footprint in a
you know,
euphemistic
I
way,
wasn't going to argue
actual
with them.
foot.
I'm like, if you can get users to footprint each other, then yeah, and you think that's going to be like a stronger way of making a connection, like go for it.
Connection for it.
And you know, it might have been from a biometric standpoint, it might have been brilliant. I once tried to sell slippers, and they were wonderful slippers, but we couldn't sell them because we couldn't get people to try them on because nobody wanted to take off their shoes. It's just like a thing. People are reluctant to take off their shoes. So we didn't think that one was probably the answer for onboarding 8 billion people.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, but the interesting thing is, okay, especially when you take into account Aura, you can do whatever you think your people. So you get to be the helper. So here's the way we are going. So yes, we are moving away from these like general purpose connection party things. But the direction we're moving in is individual helpers, a network of helpers. We call it the helper graph, but it's helpers deciding who the other good helpers are in a more decentralized way. So anyone can try to become a helper. And so if you're doing a really good job, like if people see, oh, you're incorporating facial technology to improve your ability to verify other people's honesty, and it seems to be working, and people are willing to do it. So that's the other thing, is people have to be willing to do it. Then yeah, I mean, go for it, try it out, test it out. We want BrightID to be a test bed of different honesty metrics and different verification methods. If you have a different way of helping your people, then by all means do that. Like we have some suggestions of how people can become a helper. One of the things is to have basically set up your storefront, or set up your, not really a storefront because verifications are not for sale, but set up your presence. And I would encourage people to look at where they already have some reputation in a community setting. So if you already belong to a community and people already know you, that could be a good reason to get into being a BrightID helper and playing the Aura game, because you can get all the people that come into your community, and as you get to know them and determine their honesty, you can help them to get verified on BrightID and hopefully earn some rewards for doing that. And you know, if you set up like some kiosk that has people take a snapshot of their face or something, and you can get people to do that, then go for it. But it's not going to be, none of this is BrightID core. Like the BrightID core is the social graph, and that's how we verify people. But if someone in the social graph wants to add like a little something extra to make their honesty verification better, they can definitely do that.
And I'll give the example in Aura, the increments that you can like vote on someone are much smaller. So in BrightID core, we have suspicious, just met, already known, and recovery. You know, the difference is, and assuming someone's not a cheater, you know, not an obvious cheater, which would be suspicious, or someone that's really close to your recovery connection. I think it's too muddled between just met, which is really all you're saying when you do a just met connection. All you should be saying is that you believe this person is human, and they didn't set off your spidey sense. And in Aura, you'll be able to express much smaller increments of your opinion. So there's everybody gets four votes, split up between human, honest, and bad. And if you just met someone and you had no reason to think that they were good or bad, right? They get 4 humans, and great. That all you're saying is, I met this person, I have no reason to think it's not a human. If you thought that they were a little bit bad, you could give them a little bit of badness. If they did something that seemed a little sketchy, if you're pretty sure they're honest, you could give them a little bit of honesty, or more. And I think that once we can do that, we're going to get a much more nuanced graph. Like right now for the stars in the connection meetings, for most people, the answer should be 4 human dots. If someone's sketchy, they give them 1 bad. If they're really sketchy, you can give them more. And they're probably not going to be giving any honesty points at that point, because they don't know. They just met this person on the call. They have no reason to believe anything about them. But if they've been interacting with them in a community for a while, they get to know them. Great, they can start giving that honesty.
Yeah, so that's the key difference. Is I feel like we have a decent understanding of what the limitation is for regular users and what they can say about each other, and that's encapsulated in the BrightID reference app. Although there can be other apps for making connections, that's not even the only app that can exist for that. But what Aura is for users who want to go beyond that, users who they're not just using BrightID to get verified and use apps. They realize, okay, there's more to BrightID. I can go deeper with it. I can use it to help verify other people. And hopefully, I think the best users of Aura are going to go about it in a scientific way. They're not just going to go on hunches, that they're going to actually do some research. So to give you an example, let's say that I have a friend and we have a lot of mutual connections. And so I know who I think this friend should be connecting to in BrightID, who I expect them to connect to in BrightID. I can look at their connections and I can say, okay, I would expect them to be connected to their mother, brother, sister. I expect them to be connected to this friend. I can look in their connections. If I don't see the people that I expect them to connect to, that's suspicious to me. If I see that they're connecting to a whole bunch of people that I don't know who they are, and there's just like a ton of them or something like that, that's also suspicious. So there's things that so I can do my research, and I'm hoping people will do like more rigorous honesty research in Aura, but that's not for everybody. That's just for people who want to go deeper with BrightID. So we encourage, and then it's up to those of us who understand BrightID really well and are going to be playing the Aura game to look at the other people who are the verification helpers and say, okay, you want to be a verification helper? Let me see how you're doing things. Let me see what your method is. Okay, that looks like a really good, rigorous method for determining the honesty of your friends. It looks like you're doing a good job. I'm going to give you some of my energy so that your honesty points have more weight when you give them out. If I think you're like an Aura newbie, maybe I'll give you a tiny little bit of energy to play with, or maybe I'll withhold my energy until you've had a chance to play around and figure things out. And then if you're doing things right, I can start to send you a little bit more energy. So it's the helpers evaluating each other. That's a big part of Aura and what makes it decentralized. So yeah, that's going to be the transition. And someone else asked, can the verification process be done on BrightID groups? Well, on the BrightID app, what's the plan behind joining a group? So let me give you an example of how you can use a group as an alternative to a BrightID connection party. There was a community of people that are trusted by existing Seed DAO members. So if you aren't familiar with the Seed DAO, it's where the connection party hosts get their authority. So there's a Seed DAO that kind of blesses certain groups, and it says, okay, BrightID stars group 1 that has these admins in it. Yes, we think we're giving them this much quota. We're observing what they're doing with it. When I say we, I mean the Seed DAO. And so they get to have the power to help people to get verified. Any group can potentially have that power, but they need to go through the application process. And this is the kind of not as scalable as we want way that we're currently doing things. The Aura way is a more scalable way. There was other talk about, Can we make like layers of seed DAOs? Can we have seed DAOs that have other seed DAOs and seed DAOs monitoring other seed DAOs? And so we talked about that early on as a way to maybe scale and decentralize things. But so far, that doesn't seem like something we can do. It seems like it's not, we haven't figured out how to scale that. So Aura is looking like a better option for something that could actually scale. But in the meantime, we still have this seed DAO. Right now, there's just one that evaluates whether a group should be a seed group or not. So if that seed DAO says, yeah, we've looked at this group, we think that they deserve this quota, they seem to have a community, we can find their community. There's a form you can fill out that tells that is to apply to be a seed DAO, and it tells kind of the stuff that we're looking for. We want to know who the admins of the group are. We want to know where to find them so we can like go visit them if we want to as members of seed DAO and make sure that they're doing things correctly. And then that kind of qualifies the group to become a seed group. So that's your other option. Just to give you an example of a recent seed group that was added, Aragon Network DAO added the Aragon Community Seed Group, and that's perfect because they have a well-known community. You can go find them in Discord. We can go to visit one of their connection parties. Philip visited one of their connection parties and help them out with it. So that's the right way to do it. It's too centralized right now because it's like just requires from someone from the seed DAO to go and visit, make sure that they're doing things correctly. But that's how it currently works.
Adam, can I jump in and say,
yeah,
that was a great example. So I met with the Aragon community. I felt good about what they were doing, who the people were. I saw how they interacted with each other. I thought that they should have seed power. I'm the only one that met with them. I went to the seed DAO and I said, hey, let's give these guys some quota. And it's all based on my opinion of them. Now, the rest of the seed DAO members, because they have a high opinion of me, went ahead and did that. But really, they don't have faith in that seed DAO. It's all transitive through me. So with Aura, I would send them energy. And it's not even that I have my confidence in them isn't actually in that group so much as it was in certain individuals that I met in that group. So in Aura, Philip, would give energy to Daniello because I worked with him, and then it's his job to spread it to who he knows. So at each phase, the group is saying, hey, we believe Philip. Philip is saying he believes Daniello, and Daniello is then choosing who he believes. And at each of those phases, you're in a much better position to make that call because the group is not actually in a good position. The seed group is not in a good position to opine on that whole group. They never met them. Their entire basis for giving them seed power was that I recommended it. And in Aura, it just actually gets to flow that way. Now, if I'm not personally able or willing to send enough, then either I or they can raise their hand and say, hey, who else is willing to send more energy? And maybe they need to invite Paslar to come to their meeting to get to them. And then Paslar can start sending them energy as well so that they have enough. But it's the people. And also, right, if I lost faith in that group, the entire seed group would want to withdraw that support because it all flows through me. If I don't have faith, they don't have faith. And that's not how it works right now. And it's going to be much better when, if the reason, right, Paslar, who I have deep confidence in, says that Mary should be verified, I'm happy to help get Mary verified. If Paslar removes that recommendation, I don't want any of my recommendations float. Like, I no longer want to validate her because the reason I was doing it was because Paslar convinced me that was a good idea. So transitive trust, I think, is just going to be so important in this.
Yeah, that's the right way to do it. So we had issues. I mean, that's the way that BrightID was originally designed. It's like, okay, I connect to Paslar, Paslar connects to his wife, and you start like certain points in the graph start out with some seed power and then it flows through the graph. But what we found is that connections didn't mean the same thing to everybody. And even saying that someone is already known can have wildly different meanings. Like it doesn't say much about how, just because you know someone doesn't mean that you've done the research to make sure that they're not making duplicate accounts on BrightID. And so, yeah, it didn't have the right meaning. And so we created Aura to have a smaller graph at the core where things do have that meaning. And then the idea is that everyone can find at least one person, but like Philip said, it's better if you find more, because you don't want to just depend on that one person, because if they cut you off, or let's say that one person that you've been depending on to get verified in BrightID starts making Sybils or something like that, and they lose all their ability to verify people, then you don't want to be stuck. So it's better to have multiple people that you're connected to and that have some power in the Aura graph. But so everyone can find at least one person that they can connect to that's a helper, that's someone that they know. That's going to be the main difference, is it'll be someone that you know, not just someone that you met at a connection party. So that means that yes, the Aura process can take longer. It can take longer to get verified, but it's a much stronger verification. So that right now, your BrightID, I would say, if I had to put a dollar value on having a BrightID, I'd say it's probably worth $100 right now to have a BrightID. We want it to be worth $10,000 or $100,000 to have a BrightID. And we can't do that with our current verification level. Like, no one's going to trust BrightID verified people with that much money. But there are people there's groups out there that are wanting to give away UBI, wanting to give away lots of value to unique humans if we can just show that we have unique humans. So we need to, even if it takes longer for people to get verified, it's going to be worth it to have these higher verification levels.
And it'll be a leveling up kind of a thing. So, people can, we call the current verification level 0 because it doesn't even register on the levels, but in the future we'll have level 1 and level 2 and level 3, and applications can choose how high they want to set their bar, how exclusionary do they want to be, but how confident of no Sybils. And if for people that are deeply in the community, they're going to have no problem getting quickly verified, even for a high level. If you really know people, because then we can have confidence. If you don't know anybody in the community, if you're brand new to BrightID and none of your friends have it, it's going to take you longer to get a good level. But the reality is, we're not confident you're unique if you don't know anybody. So those higher levels will not be instantly accessible to everyone. We're really proud that right now the level 0 effectively is instantly accessible to anyone, and that first that level 0 should be easy, and there will be something easy always, but that level 0 is just not going to gain you much access to anything. It's what I say is it's a really effective CAPTCHA right now, but it's not good enough for validating uniqueness. So Red Reed asks, how does the energy get generated in the first place? Still being worked out, but it basically comes out of the earth. We haven't figured out the exact dynamic, but there's a wellspring where energy will flow out, and some group of people will have access to sort of that initial flowing of energy. So imagine maybe there's 10 people that will have access to primary energy of the first flavor on day 1, and it'll start spreading out from them, and eventually could reach all parts of the graph. Also, we imagine in the future there will be additional flavors of energy that are our primary sources of energy. They came out of the ground. Different people will collect that primary energy, and spread it around through the graph. And algorithms will get to choose which flavors of energy they think are worth listening to. So we expect this first flavor of energy to be very high quality, done by honest people who are paying attention. Maybe Gitcoin creates its own, starts its own energy source. And again, it's high quality. People are thoughtful. It spreads through the graph. There's a lot of overlap with the initial like white energy. And then somebody else, sets up scam coin energy, and they just start passing it around to their Sybils. Well, the algorithms, they can see that, okay, that energy exists. Yep, all that red energy is there, but we don't care because there's not a lot of signal in that energy. No, the key to BrightID is all nodes are always allowed to do whatever analysis they want with whatever data they have available. And that scam energy, the nodes will just ignore. Or they might even use it as a contraindicator. Like if you have a bunch of that spam energy, maybe that means that you're more likely a problem person rather than a good user. We'll see.
Yeah, so I think this is a key to eventual redundancy and robustness for the network, because you don't want to depend on just one type of energy, because even if it started out with the founding team, I think that'll probably last a good long while, but you want to have some failover there, because let's say that because power corrupts, right? So let's say that the white energy becomes corrupted and people are like, we just don't know anymore. Like some people got into some white energy holders got in, and like it just looks sketchy now. And so it becomes less valuable. And at the same time, maybe red energy like rises up to take its place, and there's other energy. And it's the same way that you don't want to, ideally, you don't want to just rely on one helper for your entire verification. In the future, you won't want to rely on just one color or flavor of energy. You want to have multiple flavors of energy, so that if there's like a crackdown and like an entire energy flavor just goes out of favor because there's the overall social impression that it's just not good anymore, there's problems with it, then you have a backup. There's other energy that you can collect. So I would say collect, once you see new energy flavors coming out, collect all the good ones that you can, however you can. Find, if that means branching out a little bit and finding some other helpers to connect to or getting involved in Aura yourself, then that's a good idea, a good backup plan. And if you feel confident, I mean, I hope that there's going to be a marketplace for all of this. Our vision is that it costs money to register a flavor of energy, and then you have to basically prove to the world that your energy has value. So you've got to make a case for the people that you choose to start out with that energy. So you say, okay, like, look at us, that we've been using Aura. We're this crack team of honesty researchers, and we have a really good track record. And we've decided to come together and start our own energy flavor. And yeah, then you go for it. And if you're right about yourself, you can create a lot of value for your energy. So yeah, we hope Aura is going to be a really good playing ground for like really good, really observant, really methodical honesty researchers. And yeah, and that's where the Sybil battleground is going to shift. As it's not going to be in connection parties anymore. It's going to be, the Sybil battleground is going to happen in the Aura game. It's going to be like these really like perceptive and careful and professional people battling against the Sybils, and in a battleground that favors them. So that's what we want to have happen.
Are you imagining a negative flavor of energy? Like, as a helper, I have these flavors of energy, and now I can vouch that this person is not doing a good job?
So that's what you're going to use the bad weighting for. So what happens? So there's two separate actions. One is how do you rate another person, and that's those you get 4 options of human, honest, or bad, and you use all 4 of them. So if you thought someone was like a little bad, you'd give them 3 humans and 1 bad. Now, if you have no energy, you pressing that bad button has almost no impact, or possibly even no impact, on how things are scored. If you have a little bit of energy, you kind of push some on the scale, and if you have a lot of energy, you push harder on you push harder on the button. So a person that only has a little bit of energy, if they mark someone with a bad, it gives them a tiny little ding, like it's registered, but it doesn't mean much. If I'm a power player and have loads of energy and I put a bad, that's a much bigger ding on the person. And if I put them like 4 bad stars, like that's a huge black mark for them, because I have a lot of energy. Now, separate from that, as long as you have given someone some level of honesty, so at least 1 honesty mark and up to 4, you can choose to give them some of your energy, which would make their opinions have weight. Their opinion doesn't have weight unless they have energy. So like, let's say I give 4 honesty stars to my mom, because I'm totally confident that she is a good BrightID Aura user, right? But I don't give her any energy, because she might be easily to scam into making connections, because she would just want to be nice to everyone and like help them out. So I can mark her as fully like she's a good, honest user, her account's good, but I'm not giving any credence to her ability to mark other players, simply what I think about her actions.
Yeah, and so there's an important distinction there, that 95% of BrightID users are not even going to touch the Aura game. They'll know that there's such a thing as helpers, and they know that they need to find one and connect to them, and it needs to be someone that they already know so that they can get the better verification, someone who can actually do some research into their connections and make sure that they're making honest connections, someone that knows them well enough to be able to do that. So that's your normal BrightID user. They're not going to touch Aura. They're not going to play the game. So from the Aura interface, they show up as someone that can't have energy. You won't even be able to give them energy. So the energy is just for people who are like, okay, I've been a BrightID user for a while. I get how this works. This Aura game looks really interesting. I want to learn how to do it. I think I could be good at it. And I want to help some people get verified. And so those are the Aura players. And then you go in, you try to prove yourself so that you can get some energy.
And also, if I gave a little bit of energy to someone, they might be able to help a few people get verified, and they might be able to they can spread a little bit of energy to other people, but not much. So the only way you can have a lot of influence is if you get a lot of energy. If you have a little bit of energy, you get to have a little bit of influence. Like you can affect the downstream some, but the only way to have a big impact. So if I'm like, okay, hey, I think Johnny's doing all right, I'm gonna give him a little bit of energy. He can only have a limited impact on any of the analysis because he only ever got a little bit of energy. And the way it works is if he tries to give it, so maybe if he only tried to give energy to a few people, he would have enough to sort of light them up. But if he tried to give it to 100 people, he would be dividing the energy that I sent him into too many pieces. And now like none of the people he sent it to would have enough to accomplish anything. Does that make sense? So like, we haven't figured out the exact dynamic, but so we're thinking that the most you can possibly send to someone is 10% of your energy. But if you tried to send that full amount to 11 people, each person would get less. And different people can get different amounts, but the more people you send energy to, the less that each one of them will get. So you got to like pick where you want to focus. And I think that we're going to see big chunks of energy going in certain places and little chunks going at other places. It's fine to give your buddy a little bit so he can play around, but you're not going to send a lot, unless that friend shows that, oh, they're really playing the game. And the great thing is anybody's allowed to make the ratings, the human honest
Yeah.
bad, right? And even if they don't have much energy and they're not impacting much, the data still exists. So now you can show it to someone with energy and say, this is how I play the game. Please energize me. And then they play the game some more. And then it's like, look, here's how I played the game now. Please energize me more. But the data's all there. The readings are all there. So, someone that doesn't have any energy, but they want to show that they can be good at this, great. Go set up your social web, and then you'll get energized. When we can already sort of do an anti-Sybil analysis of what you've done. I want to answer, and then we should wrap up Red Reed's question. So he asked about if energy gets destroyed or passed on. I think it's all going to be passed on. So right, energy is neither created or destroyed. So right, it flows out of the earth and out of the magic font, and we'll have create some nice little mythology around how it spews forth. But then it's in the graph, and then it just flows on through. So like I receive it, and then I send it on, and I'm just this big glowing bright thing because I constantly have energy flowing in, and I'm flowing some out, and we'll work on the dynamics and the gameplay over time. But that's basically the idea, that it just keeps radiating out.
Yeah, and energy is helper power. Energy is not verification status. So your helper power allows you to be able to verify people so that when you mark someone as honest, they become honest. But you can still help someone get verified without giving them any energy. So I just want to make sure that's clear.
Cool. I think we are at the top of the hour. Are there any questions that we haven't covered? I think we just covered the last question, right? Yeah. Cool. Thank you. I think we've talked about Aura here and there in all these community calls that I think when we have the special Aura community call, you're just going to feel like you've talked about all of this before, but we just want to have it like compact, the official Aura meeting later on.
Yeah,
But yeah.
I'm looking forward to Aura being in a place where we feel like we can open it up to sort of like an open beta where anyone can just go and try it out. But right now it's more of I mean, anyone could potentially go try it out if you know what you're doing, but it's not like there's not enough documentation or anything like that.
And no one has energy yet.
Yeah, no one has energy yet, but you can still play. You can still play with it. And you can still rate, and you can still put your energy slider up and stuff like that. And but yeah,
there's enough changing that it's.
Yeah. So there's early access like beta and people are playing with it and giving feedback but as soon as we feel like okay, we're ready to expand the beta, then we'll do an AMA just on Aura.
Yeah. Next week is going to be with Anvala, I think.
Nice.
But yeah, I'll figure that out.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
I was thinking that before we close that, are you imagining a market where like, because I want to work on Aura and be a helper and I don't have any energy, I can reach out to people and say, okay, I'm going to give you $100. Give me some of that energy. But that's for another day.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I'm basically energy does cost money, and it is kind of like making that transaction. I mean, you can think about it like the same way with sending money. Like you, hopefully, before you go sending money around on the internet or sending crypto to people, you you know something about, you have some level of trust, some like social background to know that that who you're sending the money to is trustworthy and is going to do what you're looking for. So it'll be the same with aura energy. It will be like money in a lot of ways. So it's like, okay, I trust this person with my money. I trust that they're, because if they go and just blow it all creating a bunch of symbols, then you lost that energy. So you've got to be very careful with it.
We should probably wrap up. I'm enjoying and amused by the interesting questions in the chat. And the biggest thing I can say is all to be determined, and in a very open way. Once this kicks off, you know, we hope that this can become, you know, sort of an open source game that's an infinite game, that the rules will evolve and adapt over time. We'll figure out better ways to do things. I'd encourage people to not think of energy sort of in monetary terms early on. You know, of course, people can make whatever transactions that they want, and if Passlar's buddy says, "Hey, I'll send you $100 if you send me some energy," Passlar can make that choice. And I will probably never know that Passlar got paid for some of his energy. But if I look at his graph and see that his energy is doing bad things, I will stop sending my energy to him. And I'm certainly not, I'm not going to be playing the energy game in a monetary way. Also, the way that it's going to work, I think, in the long run is we're going to look retroactively. So a month from now, a week from now, we look, what were you saying in terms of how you were spreading your energy power? And like, what does the best analysis think now, a month later? Were you right? Were you more right or more wrong than other people? Who does it, based on what we now know a month later, who was the most accurate back then? And let's reward them for having been accurate. And if you're sending energy to a place that a month later we think was a bunch of symbols, you're going to get a lousy rating. So you're, which is going to maybe decrease rewards to you, decrease your stats and your levels or whatever. And probably some people will look and be like, oh, I don't want to send that guy so much energy because he's not actually using it well.
Makes sense to me. I can't wait to have that special call.
Yeah,
just for
yeah. We definitely talked more about it today than I expected to.
It's fun. Thank you everyone for being here, and we'll see you next week. Take care. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.